Hey folks, nice to see you all. Today I'm joined by Laura Tempest Zakroff. So you may know her as the author of Sigil, Witchery, Weave the Liminal Anatomy of a Witch, Liminal Spirits, Oracle. Like there's a big long list that I would struggle to list here. And that's lovely for me because it's always so nice to connect with people with more experience in this realm than I have. So she's a modern traditional witch, I think you describe yourself as, which is really interesting. An artist, a teacher, and Laura weaves together art, magic, activism in ways that I see have inspired people all over the world, which is really cool. And she's got these new offerings on the way out that we're going to talk about, which is Oracle, which is Ally Oracle in January, which looks amazing, and our new book Tarot by Tempest in February, which looks really good as well. Now, one of the reasons I invited Laura today is because we teach together at the Gathering of the Witches every year, which is that one of the online event. I only do one of those kind of summity type things a year, and it's the Gathering of the Witches. So I also wanted to talk about that and why I would be on something called the Gathering of the Witches, I suppose, but also to bring Laura's voice here for us so that we can hear about her wisdom and her creativity and her witchcraft. And frankly, it's always a delight to chat with like a fellow author, a fellow magical soul. Welcome, Laura.
Well, thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I've had an interesting dialogue with witchcraft in my life. It's not something I've necessarily been drawn to, but what has happened over the years for me is that I've created a practice that I find my way in through shamanism. But now a lot of my personal practice involves folk magic, Scottish folk magic, very simple spells. I don't use that word, but what I can see is that there's a very clear and distinct overlap between what I do and what other people do, other people in the witchcraft community, which has been a real joy because it's opened up a whole new area of learning for me and connection, which has been really great. But what I'm always curious about is how you landed where you are. Like, how did you end up as a magical author and teacher and magical soul? Give us a wee bit of background.
Okay. It's like the backstory of the
Aye,
origin story,
your
right?
origin story. Exactly.
I feel like it started when I was little and my grandfather built a little tiny house for me, and I would just spend all my time out in the backyard, like gathering plants and sticks and and being a little witch in the woods. It's like, But yeah, I come from a bit of an unconventional background. Here in the US, we have a lot of mix, people coming from very different origins and places. Even though I was raised Catholic, my father's Jewish, and I was very much aware that there were other forms of spirituality out there and connecting to more than just what's in a book. More than this is what you need to believe. I'm like, but what about, further representation of gender and spirituality? And why can't I be up at the altar and doing the things? I was very, very spiritual child, and being told that I could not be at the altar did not sit well as a 6-year-old. Like, so,
Interesting.
so that was very, very early on in spending this time in nature. But it wasn't until I was in my early teens, about 14 or so, that I discovered that there were actual other living practices out there, besides, like the big three. And that set me on the path, eventually reading Drawing Down the Moon by Margot Adler. And by the time I'd set off to college, I was already investigating different pagan groups that were in the New England area. And whoop, there you go. So,
Magic. So a long time for you then, like since you were
yes.
like really quite young. So it's not like something you discuss. Because for me, I was a late bloomer, shall we say. Yeah, it wasn't until I was in my early 30s that I was like, my dad died, and I was like, there's got to be more to life than what I'm currently experiencing. There has to be something else. And I always knew that there probably was, but finding a framework or a way in was quite challenging. So that's a lot of the work I do now is I support people to find their way into magic, and whatever label you end up using doesn't really matter. So for me, I'm like, right. So you're like, I have a lot of people in my community and my membership and places who also have mixed origins or who are, well, their language, not mine, escaping religion or having to heal from a childhood of religion. And sometimes people find their way to Native American culture or other kind of like spiritual land-based practices, but then they find not always not welcome in those circles. I think people with white ancestry, but often you'll find, they're often not welcome for various reasons, and most of them good. So then people come over here, or they're like, oh wait, okay, so I'm white, European, where's my lineage? Like, what do I look for? So they'll find their way here. And then actually some people here in Britain are very close-minded about being open and welcoming folk with European ancestry into their practices. And I have never felt like that. I'm like, where are you supposed to go? Like, if you can't be in America connecting with land-based practices there, and if you come over here and you're not welcome here, where are you meant to go? it just never landed, and it's never sat right with me. So I'm always very much of the opinion that the practices that I teach and connect with are open. We in Britain, we don't have elders, we don't have people to decide what's open and closed, and it's folk magics for the folks, for everyone.
Right.
So that's kind of the way that I teach and work. And I'm curious if you guys over there in New England have like conversations around that, or like what's your take on it?
Yeah, I like to say that the land remembers everyone and everything that has ever walked or flown or crawled across it, right? And we are always the continuing part of that story. Land is ancient, and it's important to know those stories. So to know what happened here 5,000 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, but also 50 years ago, because the land is a part of that story, and we are part of the land. We eat from the land, we drink from the land, our bodies are made from that. Particularly here in the US, yeah, where people feel very lost, right? And they're, especially in the 90s, where it's like, it's from over there, the magic's over there. Like, it's like you're following this carrot, it's over there. But you were here. You were here right now. And in order to be connected to your practice, you need to be connected to where you are. Even if you're, traveling, or you're moving somewhere, you're going to be in college for 4 years, whatever. It's like, you need to be able to connect with that land, because it's a part, or it's going to become a part of who you are, and you're becoming a part of its story. So it's about respect and relationship with those stories that have come before, but realizing that you are a continuation of that story.
I love that. That's like really special, isn't it? So I think sometimes people miss the difference between creating your own ceremony and your own connection on the land that you live versus copying or taking from other places.
Right.
We are we are innately creative creatures, and we all have the capacity to connect with the divine or God or whatever it is, the universe, or whatever it is, whatever the label is, where nobody's arguing that it exists. We're all just arguing about what we call it. So that creative spark is really important. It sounds to me like in witchcraft the same as in the work that I do, which would be Celtic spirituality or Celtic shamanism. We're not trying to, for me, the way that I interact with it, I'm not trying to recreate the past.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to do that. If I was, I'd be getting into some pretty questionable practices. Not going to lie. So, I am creative. I do like to know the root of the things that I work with, and I do like to know where things come from. But ultimately, as a human being with a set of values and a brain in my head and a connection to spirit, I can feel and decide where it is that I should and would like to go with my spiritual path. Is that similar for you guys?
Yes, I call myself a modern traditional witch, because it's a balance of what are the traditions that we've come from, like to know the folklore and to know the practices of the land, but also our ancestors, wherever they are from, and to know those stories. But we're living where we're living right now in this modern society, and so we need to alter that practice for who we are today, to connect, to really know who we are and where we're going, and to also ask why. Like, there are a lot of traditions that say, this is here it is, this is how it's supposed to be, and don't deviate from this book, or how you're supposed to lay out your altar, or how you're supposed to do this right, without telling you why. If we're doing something, it's often because there is a why, but if you don't teach people the why, then they don't understand the depth of the practice and what's important to it. And there's also the realities, like as an artist, as also I'm a dancer. I've studied folkloric dances from all around the world, and human beings have similar solutions. We're going to see that again and again, whether it's parallel myths, the idea of parallel myths. But when I'm looking at trance dances, which has been one of my favorite things to explore, is oh, look, we're using this particular rhythm again here and here and here in these different places. And we're using this particular movement to enhance or to bring about trance. It's because we have bodies and those bodies don't change that much, right? Like the gravity is going to be the same on the whole planet. The landscape might change. The stories behind the dance might change, but we still are coming to the same rhythms and movements and energy. And to realize that again, we have those brains, right? They're going to come to very similar solutions. And so people are like, this is only done there. I'm like, yes, there are a few things that are only done in one spot because of very unique environmental circumstances or historical things that have happened. But for a whole, we're often going to come to those same solutions. And we're also going to reinvent the wheel again and again, too. So it's like, just relax, relax a little bit about understanding that we're often going to come to similar solutions. Not to say go and copy things, but it's the inevitable solution is often very similar.
Oh, I like that. Similar solutions. I'm going to write that down. I might steal that, Laura. I like it. It's great. Well, isn't it true though? And that just speaks to the fact that no matter where you go in the world, there are similar practices and there's rhythm. Well, for me, it would be the drum, right? So I use the drum and rattles and various things that I have lying around, and that's what I use for my trance state. And I remember first getting into shamanism many years ago and being told you have to beat between like 6 and whatever hertz for the blah 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 the brain, and I'd be like, right, okay, so I'm drumming away at this speed and I'm like, oh my god, far too fast. I was like, no, absolutely not. So then I thought I'll just connect with the spirit of my drum. So I did that, and I just learned the spirit of my drum and journeyed with it and connected with it and built a relationship with the vibration that it created and the movement in my body and the way that I felt when I played it. And that was more powerful than any, like you're saying, any book that gives you the prescription or the method. I'm not a very method-based teacher, I have to say, Laura. I'm not. I think, don't you think that methods are really great when you first start out? It's really great, right, to have like the step by step, because sometimes you're like, I have no idea where to even begin with this. But then to find your confidence with it and find your own spirit with it and then begin to become creative. So for me, I've got like quite firm, like safe guiding principles for the work that I do. I think there's certain things that is just sensible to do when you're working in the magic field, but you know, being too method-based and prescriptive tends to take the magic away pretty quickly.
Yes. And also with our society, on top of that, is people almost expect to be spoon-fed, right? They're like, just tell me what I'm supposed to do. That doesn't prepare you for what you're, when you're out in the wild world and you're actually needing to do something, is there isn't going to be something that pops up and like, hey, here's your little list of things you're supposed to follow, and say these things. Like, you have to listen. You have to be able to think on your feet or think on your head, if you will,
Mm.
from the heart. I'm a big fan, very neurospicy, so I like to create systems, but the systems are really gentle frameworks of like, have you thought about these things? But how do they pertain to you? So in like say in Weave the Liminal, I talk about rights, which is your roots, your inspiration, time, your environment, and what I call star. And that's going to be depend on each individual. It's not going to say you have to follow this lunar schedule or this solar schedule, and that's how you're going to be a witch. It's like you're going to be a witch when you figure out what solar schedule works for you, what lunar schedule works for you, and how does that work into your personal life. That's the difference.
Love it. I love it. Yes, 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 yes. Then one of the things I don't know much about, so I'm going to segue out of that. I'm going to ask you about sigil, right? Sigils. I don't know much about sigils. I know that they're, tell you what I know, which is nothing. There's shapes that you draw and they have magic attached to them for some reason. And I have sigils. I have a big sigil here on my body, which is what I wouldn't have called it, but it is like tattooed. So that's what that is. I know what it means for me, and I created it, and I had it. Like my husband tattooed it on me, and I would never have called it that, but I didn't have a name for it. So I'm like, oh, interesting when the word sigil came up. And you teach about that. Not only do you have books on it, but you also teach on it at the gathering of the shamans. And I didn't meet your class last year because it was in the middle of the night for me. So it was
Yes.
I was quite late. But I'm hoping to get the I think it's probably late for me in Scotland this year, but I'm hoping to get the replay. Anyway, I digress. The point is that what I really would like to hear from you, for myself and probably my listeners as well, who maybe aren't in the witchcraft field necessarily, but more in the sort of Celtic shamanic field. I don't talk about sigils, don't hear anyone else talking about it. What does it mean? Why do we use it? What's the point? Give us the lowdown of the art of sigil witchcraft.
The the quick and dirty is
Aye.
essentially a sigil is a mark, a shape, a symbol that has been created by human beings that is believed to have magical properties. Your symbol or shape created by human beings, which is an important part of it, right? And that's drawn, etched, danced, however it's created by human beings, the belief that it has magical properties, which covers a wide range of things and traditions that I've been doing. I would say going back to the cave paintings, going 250,000 years ago, at the moment when we start to tell ourselves stories and engage in art and use it to connect to our environment and the seen and the unseen worlds, essentially. And so that has developed into a whole array of practices in modern paganism and witchcraft. That tends to be very Western occult based. So people tend to think when they first hear about sigils, or at least it has been for a while, it's changing, which I'm very excited about, is you tend to think of the grimoire traditions and, the these very set symbols that you use to conjure in or command something, which is one way. Right? It's one way or one practice, and there's the chaos magic approach too as well, and creating little charts and such. For my approach, the sigil witchery method is tapping into the rhythm of the universe. That when you observe the world around you, and whether you're looking at this magically or scientifically, the world is made of shapes. It's made of shapes and rhythms and patterns. It's the math describes the rhythms of the universe, and so when you look at there, it's circles and squares and spirals and stars and all of these things. And we have these universal symbols that culturally across the planet that we have been using. And when we put our intention into that, when we think about how do I solve this? How do I create a key essentially to describe what it is that I want to unlock? Then to me, that's crafting a sigil. So it's like your use of that could be anything that you're looking to. So, are you connecting to a spirit, an ancestor, a deity? Are you looking to solve a problem with magic, right? Prosperity, luck, protection. So there's anything that you might light a candle for, you could actually create a sigil for.
Interesting. One of the words that you used there's two things you said there that I also don't know what you're talking about. One of them is grimoire. I've heard of it. I don't know what it is. Is that like a book that you just sort of make your way through and it's is it like method and it's this for this? Is that the idea?
Yeah, the grimoires, it comes from French for grammar. So it's a book of spells, a book of rituals. So especially in ceremonial magic, like the Keys of Solomon and different grimoires from that, Agrippa's. It's like very, very Western occultism of taking, especially from uh from Asia and what we call the Middle East, but it's more of that whole area through North Africa and the Mediterranean area, and deciphered and changed and put into grimoires in the historical sense. But in modern witchcraft, we just think of it as a book of spells. So anybody can write a grimoire.
Oh, okay. So
You
it's not
might
like
heard
one book like the Bible. It's like
no, I mean
it's like
there are published ones, such as like the different the magical books from Agrippa.
mhm.
But I think people might often use Book of Shadows, which is the term that Gerald Gardner of one of the fathers of modern witchcraft and Wicca coined, taking from a different source as well.
Yeah.
But
It's like a
you know,
union thing, right? It's like shadow is like right, okay.
yeah, it's like whatever you call it, it's your notebook, right? It tends to be your notebook, but depending on a tradition might hand down a specific book of rituals and spells or
Oh,
reference
okay.
that. So it's that interesting balance between what is oral tradition and folklore and the stories that we pass on and versus recorded them, and how important those are and how much you get to add your voice to it as well.
It sounds like you're a fan of adding your voice.
Yes. I like to, you can't tell me what to do. Like, tell me why first. Why do I have to
Yeah.
do that? I'm
Why?
that annoying person. Tell me why.
Yeah. 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 All right. Okay. Cool. So I'm just imagining a time where I had like a group and sorry, let me, so what do we do? We like journeyed, so we do shamanic journeys. I don't know if you do like hedge witchery. I don't know if that's like they say hedge, right? There's like equivalents, but we do like a shamanic journey. We connect with our guides and we asked for a symbol collectively. And it was like, wasn't many of us, it was like 5 of us, and we all got a very similar symbol, which was really cool in the same journey. And then we were all like guided to like make this symbol on the earth with our bodies. So we were all like lying in the shape on the earth. And to me, that was like a land healing. I would call that land healing, but that sounds to me like what the, taking that step further, that would have been us creating a sigil. Yeah, for
Absolutely.
land healing.
Yeah. Cause it's
Amazing.
unlocking, what is it? What you're trying to make that connection. You're doing something that influences your cells and the world around you. So yeah, using the body. That's the thing. That's what a sigil is. It connects to the body in some sort of way to connect to the other worlds around us.
And what would you say, how important, because I see that you talk about it a lot, because I did go through your like social media, I had to look, and you do talk about sigils a lot. Where do you place sigil witchery in the landscape of witchcraft? Like, how important is it, would you say?
Well, for me personally, as an artist, I say that art is my magic, right? That's my form of spellcraft, or one of my primary forms of spellcraft is to connect with shapes and images and visualization around us, because it taps into a part of our brain that words often don't touch, right? The animalistic part of ourselves, the fetch energy, as well as the higher aspect of ourselves, right? It connects with that. And so for my practice, it's fairly important, and I don't go around like, oh, I have to go create a sigil for that to solve a lot of my what I'm trying to tap into. But when I sit down to make art, the lines and the patterns and the colors and the shapes are what brings the art into being. And so for my practice, it's really important. And I think as something that doesn't require you to do anything more than have your body, right? Or a piece of paper and a pen, um, that you don't need things, right? Um, I get often asked, and someone just asked, like, what kind of witch kit do I need? I'm like, you don't you don't need anything. Probably what anything you might possibly need is already in your house or is your body. So understanding sigil magic instead of being like, I must, I love this stuff. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the oils and the herbs and, I wrote a book on cauldrons. I love cauldrons. I love stuff, right? It's like there's a pie. This is my studio. So this is where all the art happens. I love stuff. My little like, collecting little things. But when it comes to magic, I don't need anything else to bring what I need into being and to connect with those things. I just need to be a body. That's our experience, right? To be an embodied spirit and connect to the world. That's why that's why we're here.
I think so.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So,
Makes sense.
so yeah, being able to pull something out of your pocket that just requires you instead of a stack of books and expensive supplies and crystals and da 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 da. Like those things are nice, but you can just do with just you.
For sure. So if someone was to come to you and be like, oh, here, I'm worried that I'm not going to get it right. I'm worried I'm going to get this wrong. What would you say?
So you get it wrong. That's how we learn. I always say, what is the worst that can happen outside of safety things, right? So my the Cauldron book, there's a lot of fire safety in there, and my editor's like, do you really need all this fire safety? I'm like, for every incident that I have to take, there was something that happened or I observed that is the reason why you have this. So outside of health and safety, the thing about working metaphysics and magic and with the spiritual realm is you're going to screw up. You're going to fuck things up. But As long as it doesn't, my students, when we talk about why do we create sacred space? Why might you cast a circle? What order you call elements into? Which directions you're facing when you put those together? Like, no, when you're doing it within a group, it's for the group consciousness. We do ritual to connect with ourselves and each other. Right, and the world around us from there. But when we're doing it together, it's for the communal experience first, and then from there. So what if you accidentally called air instead of fire? First of all, they're already present. The elements are present within us. It's an idea, it's a concept. Unless you're doing something to insult, to disrespect the forces, the energies, and the relationships you have in the world, then you might as well try it and see, because it's an experimental and experiential path. And you don't go far unless you take a step.
Yeah.
And drop
And
something.
also, one of the things I talk about as well is like the spirits, they hear your heart. You know, if you're like,
Yes.
your intention is good and you're doing your best, like that's fine, right? They're like, we got you, this is all good. It's when there's like maybe other energies that you're bringing, whether you're aware of it or not everybody's aware of it, that things can get a little bit muddy sometimes. What's your take on spiritual safety? I'm a big fan of spiritual safety. I have to say, I'm like, have 6 guiding principles to say practice for when people do their journey work, or I'm always like, you know, you're not journeying for anyone else without consent. Like I've got this whole thing that I talk about. And I find like, I find myself occasionally at odds with my witchcraft friends, who I have many of. One of them being around like, you know, this idea of hexes and returning things, and I'm in the, I try and stay in the for me, of me, by me area, which doesn't always make me popular when people are asking how they get revenge, or like when they're like really angry about things. It doesn't make me very popular. But I'm like, for me, I think that takes people into an area where it can be hard to return from, and when you do get back, you're a different person. It's like it's not a good area to be in. So I have a lot to say about spiritual safety. I wonder what you've got to say about it from your side.
I have a somewhat unconventional threefold law, which is that everything you do affects you, mind, body, and spirit. There's going to be an influence. So whether you do it with a good intention, with a bad intention, with what is, I don't look at magic or the force of the world as being something that could be good or evil, because I have seen healing work do damage, right? I'm doing this for healing. And I've seen baneful work do amazing healing work. So, it's like we get caught up in the words rather than what is the intent? What is the result that we want? Are we working through the process? For general safety and hygiene, like it's understanding. It's like, well, how do I protect things? What is a protection? Knowing that we have various levels of what is permeable and protected, personal and communal spaces. I think that's very important to give folks those guidelines, because especially if you're coming from a more traditional religious background, right? There's like, it's not even discussed, or whatever is considered wrong is, we won't go there. That's a whole
Yeah.
headache. It's too early here to drink. But understanding that sometimes, setting boundaries is hygienic process as well.
Oh my God. Everybody, all of the people who know me, who listen to this, are going to be laughing and probably cheering a little bit, because like literally boundaries, I talk about it at least once a day. Like I'm always talking about boundaries, and I think people are going to be laughing right now thinking, oh, this pair are going to be like firm friends after just that one sentence. Sorry, do continue. I got quite excited. Do continue on the subject of boundaries, Laura.
So thinking about personal space, your own sovereignty, right? Connection, your relationships, we should have, whether it is someone you have a physical relationship or a metaphysical or spiritual relationship, boundaries are important. Understanding what is that relationship like? How do you want to maintain it? What is a healthy relationship as well? A lot of people come into witchcraft where they just want to replace out Sky Daddy for Earth Mama. Don't evaluate the context of that relationship. And so you get so many people who are like, no, the goddess is angry at me. I'm like, she's not your mama. Like it's just, it's not
The way that works.
It's like, No, stop thinking in vengeful deity terms for absolutely everything, because they're on a other level of existence. So that's your own issues. How about we deal with that? That's also part of the hygiene and the boundaries is that self-awareness. I mean, people call it shadow work. I like call it being like, know thyself. Know what's going on. What are the good things that you're capable of? What are the things you have to work on? It's an ongoing process, because it's not like, oh, you're going to reach one place where you're pure and ascended and everything's perfect. Like, no, we're human beings. We will continue to fuck up and do new and interesting things. That's just the nature of it, of living. So yeah, that grace. I would say that's also part of safety, is having some grace in for yourself, and realize that if you screw something up, you're not a bad person automatically,
Yeah.
or not a bad witch. And I like to say to people, are you a good witch or a bad witch? I'm like, I'm an effective witch. That's what I go for.
Yeah.
Is it effective? Is it doing something?
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. I'm an effective witch. I love that. Oh my word. That's so cool. All right. So just by talking to you, not knowing you very well or knowing of you before this, I'm quite excited because I'm hearing like very similar values. But what I'm hearing you telling me them from a different perspective. So you're like saying it sounds like you teach similar things to me, but you have this like different like doorway into what it is that we teach, which I love. I love that. And one of the things that I did want to ask you about was how you create your written word, right? So I am one book in, it's there, and I've got another one one coming out in January, yay, which is great. Called the Wheel of the Year, Celtic Wheel of the Year, if anybody's interested, which I'm sure you guys listening will know that. And then I've just signed my third book contract. I haven't started it yet. So what I'm always interested in hearing from someone who's like, Oracle deck, but who's got this like huge body of work. And the way that you express yourself, I'm finding really inspiring as well. So I'm wondering, what's your process, Laura? Like, how do you decide what you're going to write about? Is it like divine? Because I just get either I get told by my publisher, let's be honest, about a book that they want, and you can say yes or no. And then the last one, I'm like, no, I need to write a book on this. This is like flooding me, and I need to get it out of me. So I'm wondering what your process is, both with a book and an oracle deck. So I'm not done an oracle deck. So I'm wondering, like, are those similar processes? Like, what, is it different? Because, like, obviously, oracle, you're an artist. Did you do your own artist? Did you do your own art, or did you find someone else? Like, blah 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 blah. I'm curious in all the things you'd like to tell me.
So when it comes to the majority of my books, so We the Liminal, Sigil Witchery, Anatomy of a Witch, Visual Alchemy, those things, I look at as problem solving. I see a need in the community that, as I'm teaching out in the world and people are struggling with, and that goes into my brain of like, how do I help people? If I'm uniquely qualified, because again, it's like, I don't be like, I see that problem, I know nothing about it, so let me go fix it. Like, no, it's like the thing that this is my wheelhouse. Let me, share that, because when I'm teaching and people go, oh, this helped me so much, it's clarified. It's like, you should write a book. I hate the should,
Yeah, right.
but that's the things. Like, Sigil Witchery came about because I was doing a class called it was called Visual Alchemy back in the day, which is about the intersection of art and magic. And someone was looking at one of my paintings, because I show like throughout history, and then because like apparently it's good branding to also talk about how art and magic intersect in my own work. They're like, what's that thing over there? And I'm like, oh, it's a sigil. And they're like, oh, it doesn't look like sigil I've ever seen before. I'm like, well, something that I've been intuitively doing for decades. And they're like, well, it's cool. How do you do it? And I'm like, I'll have to get back to you on that, because again, when it's an intuitive process, I haven't, I'm like, I'm telling the story in my own head, but I'm like, I don't know how it works for the world outside of my own head. So I had to solve that, right? To be able to be like, how do I break this down? What's going on in my head? And then put it out into the world. And now, like, 50,000 books later, and the Oracle deck as well, it's working for people in ways that they're like, this makes so much more sense. So that's the real, I'm a teacher, right? That's kind of the thing that is really excited, a teacher in a community. I'm also a Gemini. This should explains everything. I have information. Let me give you some.
Uh-huh.
So that feeds into the majority of my work is have an idea to to solve a problem. And the oracle decks are that very, very specifically. For years, people will tell me, like, oh, your art would be a beautiful tarot deck. You should just take all these paintings and put them into an oracle deck. And it doesn't work that way. That doesn't make sense to me because those were not created to go together to become something. So the first oracle deck I created, the Liminal Spirits Oracle, I was doing a series of paintings that were tapping into the spirits of plants and animals. And it was just a fun little series that I was doing for an event coming up. And I'm like, I have these old pieces of wood. Let me do the mushroom spirit and the sheep spirit and the foxglove spirit. And I had so much fun. I was like, this could be a thing. And I was like, well, what if it's a deck that helps people connect to spirits of place and animals and plants and such around them, and they can use it to connect to the right system that I talk about in Weave the Liminal. So they connect to the world around them because people are so much in their heads that they're not realizing that there are so many modes of communication that happen around them. So the liminal spirits solves that problem. It's something I got excited about for that little bit of inspiration of working with these spirits. And then when I made that art, that was 2 weeks solid. People are like, you made that deck in 2 weeks? Like, I made the art in 2 weeks, which was me in my studio communing with the spirits. And I would not recommend it for most people. Like, my partner comes in and is like, would you like some tea? And then backs back out. Like, would you like a cookie? And backs back. Like, that's all. Like, I'm not one of those people who are like, let me just talk to this spirit one day and then I'll do another one another way. Like, it all has to be for a whole system. It has to be together.
Yeah.
So a little obsessive, but that's how the rest of the decks have gone so far. Such as like the most recently, the Sigil Witchery Oracle is having taught this, class now to thousands of people all over the world. Is I recognize that people go, but I don't know any symbols or shapes. And like, but you do. And let me help you with this so that you can pull cards to have this experience, but you can also use it for meditation and movement and artistic exploration. So I like to solve problems.
I love that. I haven't really thought about whether or not I would do an oracle deck. I feel like people have mentioned it, but that's an interesting way to think about that because I like a one system is done together, and I really feel the resonance of that. I'm going to put that in my back pocket and then not agree to it unless I can have some. Unless I've got like a chunk of time that I can I hadn't really thought about it like that. So when you create something that's an oracle deck to you, that's like one soul, one spirit that you're birthing essentially, and it all comes together. I love that. And then what about your new book as well, Tarot by Tempest? Let's talk about that. So tarot is something we've not touched on. That's another thing I don't know much about. So I don't do well with lots of things I have to remember. So for me, tarot was always a bit overwhelming and a bit too much, but I do love it. And I love it when I see people. I've been, my brother's a tarot reader, and I have friends who use the tarot, and one of my best friends actually occasionally comes in and does like some tarot workshops for me. And I love it. I love listening to people talk about it and like the different energies that people bring to this like deck. And not only do people use the imagery and the traditions of the deck, but I watch different people draw down different intuition and like use it in different ways. And I seen this guy once who does like tarot storytelling. So he just like pulls these cards in like this big tree shape and like tells these stories about my life. And I'm like, oh dude, that was actually like scarily accurate and very helpful. I haven't seen like, and then obviously other kind of traditional ways. So what's your book? What do people get from this? What I'm sure is a very unique view is what I'm getting. That's what I'm sensing. Tell me about it.
So Tarot by Tempest is my approach to the tarot, which has been influenced by 30 years of dance and art and witchcraft, etc. And how I see the cards. And I am also not one of those, let me go memorize. Like, not about, getting super, into that. But as you mentioned, the gentleman who's telling stories with the tarot, they're illustrations, it's art. So you have the positions that bodies are in, you have the colors that are used, you have the numbers that are assigned to these cards. And initially, one of the working titles was Tarot by Number, because I'm not necessarily numerology, because I feel like that's a very set thing that people tend to think of that. But as an artist, when I look at the number 4, for example, right? So as a dancer, so 4 is often a square or rectangle, right? And that's a foundational brick. It's like a brick, right? It's like a brick or a box. It's very sturdy. You can build things with it. And it aligns to the emperor in the major arcana, which is number 4. The emperor is about tradition and structure and guidelines. Like, how do we set things up? How do we put things in order? And so how do we put the bricks together, right? How do we put that structure in? And most rhythms, right? We tend to think of, especially in the Western world, of like an 8, a 4/8 rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4. Like we have 2 feet. So in order to go somewhere, you have to add something onto that. And then you can think of a waltz, which is in the 3-step, which connects to the empress. Like you can go into all of those things. So what it is setting up the numbers so that you can connect to the energy of the numbers and shapes. So you can look at numbers, you can look at the shapes, you can look at the movement, you can look at how it relates to the body, and be able to use that to read with any tarot deck or even a deck of playing cards for that, because you can go to the numbers. So it allows you like a whole variety of different ways of thinking to look at the tarot and open it up in ways that are fun and doesn't require you to memorize every single card.
So literally my problem that I was just like talking
Yeah,
about.
right.
That's
I'm here to
literally what
solve
you've
your problem.
just described. I'm like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's a book I need, actually. I'll be pre-ordering that. Is it out for pre-order now, your book?
Yeah, you can. It's from Llewellyn, so it's up for
Oh,
pre-order
okay.
through their website. And I always add things to my own website, like within 45 days of release, because there's always someone who's like, "Why is my book not here?" And I'm like, "It's a pre-order. It's not being released
Yeah.
to here in the States. I think
Yeah.
it's February of 2026."
Okay, cool. So it'll maybe be a bit later in the UK then, which is fine. Yeah, that's it. That's like I'm just like, oh, it's just that wee bit there just wove together everything that you've just said about like teaching and solving problems. I'm like, my problem is, and you're like, my book is. I'm
My
just
book
like,
is here to solve your problem.
yeah, I'm as if by magic.
Hashtag witchcraft.
Yeah. What do you think about? I work with guides, shamanic guides. I think that without thinking about it too much, because if you get too masculine archetype and you get too logical and too knowledge based, then you drive yourself insane. So I don't do that anymore. Just to do that, but my general like idea or notion or like feeling on my guides is that it's God or the universe or whatever that thing is that we all know what it is, but we don't necessarily have a label for it. My guides are like the universe's way of communicating and interacting with me in a way that I can understand and work with. I find that I build very close relationships with my guides, and I do recommend when I teach people to work with guides that they build relationship with the guides they work with, and that's who they work with. And when you do journey, you only go with your own guides, and you can meet other entities and whatever, but you need to be doing that through your guides, and it's just like safety. But this idea of like connecting to a team, a spiritual team, so that I can understand the world I live in is something that's really important to me. And also, as well, we do something called omen walking, which is like, you take an intention out into the world. It doesn't have to be in nature, people. I know that not everybody has access to like gorgeous woodlands and, fairy creatures and all that. And sometimes you're in a city, but it all works the same. The intention is the intention and everything's made of stardust. So, one of the biggest omens I was ever given was on the side of a lorry, which is like a big truck for Americans, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm like, there's just like, it's the signs, the way that I interact with the universe, the things that happen that I can't explain, don't care about explaining, frankly, but like really work. All of that works for me because I build a daily relationship with my guides and with the land that I live on and with with the planet that I inhabit. How does that, especially the guide piece, how does that like sort of slot into how you work with witchcraft? Do you work with guides or familiars, or what's your vibe with all that?
I think it's very similar. It comes down to the terminology. I know.
Mm.
So when I was a wee witchlet back in the day, I worked as a professional psychic tarot reader at a shop in California for a few years, and it was like, "Well, tell me about your guides." And I'm like, "Sorry, was I supposed to? Was I supposed to have? There's like, well, my guide does this and that." I'm like, "Oh, I'm listening to the universe." Isn't one specific thing. For for my own personal path, But as I've gotten older, the ancestors, especially like my grandparents, who was my maternal grandparents, was very close um, to feel them in my life in a new way once they had crossed over. As that's when I talk about ancestor working. It's often the direct, that direct line, as well as the spiritual line, because I also look at it as like something we are our own ancestors coming through, right? So there's that energy. But yeah, it does come down to people say they can have familiar spirits. They might refer to their cat, and it's not necessarily a cat. The cat's like you're asking a whole lot of it. Of a tabby cat. But I think if I'm in conversation with the universe and the things around me, then that is it's all about relationships. To me, witchcraft, this existence is the relationships around us, being open to listening, communicating. And some of those things and beings in existence are going to be companions for the journey, a long, long journey. And some of them are just going to be like, hey, bitch, we need to have a talk right now.
Yeah, what do you think about people who are always like, there's evil spirits around me, and like always, like it doesn't matter what you do or how you support them or what you explain, there's always an evil spirit or an evil this or an evil that, or somebody's hexing me, or somebody's sending horrible things my way. Like, what do you tell people when they say that?
I'll just be like, here's a mirror.
Yeah, me too, but I was just like wondering what you say. I was wondering if you had like a better way, but I'm just like, well,
Like, I was like, perhaps look and see. I once had to do it was a really big radio show, and it was like, oh, I think all these things are going wrong in my life. And I was like, have you considered the connecting factor here to all of this is you? Perhaps it's you. It's you. You're the problem. The generic. That's right. Yeah, this is a consistent thing that I tend to see is that as people not dealing with their own, that's come back to, it's responsibility, right? People want to blame other things rather than accepting responsibility, which I consider is like it's a major tenet in modern traditional witchcraft. It's like, know yourself, maintain balance, accept responsibility, which for the good and the bad. And when it comes to actual unsettled spirits, let's put it that way, right? Like, one of my favorite things to do when I'm listening to, when I'm making artwork, is listening to paranormal podcasts, ghost stories, and things like that. And especially in that genre, there's always like, it was a demon. And like, it sounds like a disgruntled land spirit because you tore up that tree, right? Like, that doesn't make it evil. That makes you didn't accept responsibility. You didn't think. You're like, oh, it's affecting the property value, so I should just rip up this tree that's been there, that's been a home to so many animals and spirits and layers of things. Like, that's not a demon. That's just someone being upset. You upset someone. That doesn't make them evil. So there's that range, right? It's between you need to deal with your own shit, to having like an understanding that you're in a larger community than that which you can see. It's more, you can perceive it though. It's just you believe that you can only see and touch it as the only thing that matters when it's much bigger than that. So that's
I love that.
my take.
Have you ever come across anyone who you're actually like, oh yeah, you need some help?
Reasons why I don't own a witch shop. I love all my friends who are, I call them, like, you are the saints. If you own a witchy, occult, metaphysical shop, you are doing the work. I appreciate it. It is fantastic, but I know I am not equipped in a social way.
Do you often get people like coming in and being like dragging stuff in with them and being like, help, and you're just like, whoa.
But yeah, there's that, there's the people who come in and like, I have to tell you how powerful I am. I once saw a thing. And I'm like, I have no patience. I'm just like, you want a cookie? You're a human being. Good luck. Good luck. Have none. Very good. Have some glitter. I don't know. Like, I can't
I'm not
be in
your
that
mother.
position. Yeah. Like, this is why I'm like, I make art, I teach. I don't put myself in any one location for long enough that I'm like, no, sorry, I can't be charitable. I could tell you what I think.
That's so funny. Yeah. I mean, it is, isn't it? It's like really interesting to like be in this sphere and around like responsibility. So there's like, and you find it anywhere, to be honest. It's not just in the spiritual or witchcraft community, like it's everywhere. But for me, I'm like, if you're trying to make me your parent, I'm not gonna I'm not going to do that. That's just not happening. Also, the pedestal thing as well. Like, people are like, want to put you up on the pedestal. I'm like, here, that's a long way to fall. I'm no, thank you. Like, no, thank you. And that's really interesting dance as well, because we do hold, like, for me as a teacher and an author, like, I do hold a place of authority, and I try and like use that sensibly and well, but I'm also like, please, for the love of God, like, I'm just normal. Like, me and my husband had this huge argument last week, and I did not handle myself very well. Like, I can be an asshole, and sometimes I screw up or I do things that I shouldn't, and then I'm like, oh, but then what do? We take responsibility and we say, oh, do you know what? I'm screwed up. I'm sorry. Like, da. But then I've got this like sense of, as people appear before me in circle or in classes, like at the Gathering of the Witches, for example, there's this energy of like, oh, what you have, I want that, and it's going to fix me, and everything's going to be fine. And I'm like, that's no, sorry, we're just humans. It's going to be tough. Enjoy the good times. Enjoy joy. Try and like connect with joy, because lots of people don't. Right? They're too worried about waiting for the other shoe to drop. So I'm like, enjoy joy. Be joyful, but it'll stop at some point. Like, something will happen, like, and it'll be difficult again. But it's like, how do you handle the difficulty, and how do you like, because, yeah, right. So we work with the 3 cauldrons. So it's like lower, middle, before you get to the upper. So you talked earlier about like how to be steady in your craft. So we're like lower cauldron, middle cauldron. So lower is your internal landscape, what shit you've picked up as a child, like your nervous system, all these things. Middle cauldron, boundaries, shadow, all these things. Like, all the things that you need to feel safe in your body to be effective with happens in the middle cauldron. And then once you've got those they don't have to be perfect, but they need to be aware and like take responsibility for them. Then the upper cauldron, which is where all the magic shit lies, just starts to turn on itself almost, right? I've gone through about 15 different topics there, by the way. So you can just pick one. We started with like being up on a pedestal, and now we're on the 3 cauldrons and like the ding, ding, ding. But I just feel like there's this like, yeah, so the overall theme of that, thing that I just said is like the sense of responsibility, but like for self, and not thinking that we are any better just because we are where, like, it's just really not good to think like that. There's just something about it that's like, it's not aligned, is it?
No, and it comes back to the please be guru, please spoon fed, make everything
Yes.
right. And then like,
Thank
that's not
you.
this, it's not
Yeah.
this world. Again, it's like, I deeply respect acquaintances, associates, friends, and such who, run schools and temples and churches and such. And I'm like, I know where I need to be. I'm like, I'm a big dork. I don't want to be someone's parent, as you said. Like, it's not. I have 4 cats and a partner. That is enough. And I have, like, that's where I exist. This is good.
Yeah, we have this space. Sorry, did I interrupt?
No, go ahead.
So we have this space called the Cauldron's Way, and we do something called eye language, where we have, when you come, you can't give advice. You can only come and be there for yourself and your personal responsibility. And it's really interesting because when the men arrive, like, it's open to all, it's like all genders.
Yep.
So when the men arrive, they're like, they want to speak as God, and they will mostly not stay, honestly. Then the men who do are amazing because they really get it. And the women who arrive want to save. So they're like, let me save you. And many of them are fine, but many get really annoyed to start with, myself included. When I learned it for the first time, really annoying. And just learning how to like not say you this and you that, and jumping in to save has been life-changing for some people. Just that idea of like, oh wait, I'm only here for me. There's only me. You can do other things outside of that space, but if you want to be in this space, you're here only for you. We're quite militant about it. We've got like moderators and stuff, who are great. They're all like amazing. But what it does is it creates this environment where everybody's safe to express. Nobody's going to get a fire hose of unsolicited advice that they didn't ask for and usually don't need. But people can say, I've had that experience. This is what I did. So then there's like a much gentler way to like, for people to like choose the kind of perils of wisdom. And I think that in terms of like how we communicate and the way that we interact in the world. Responsibility is like such a big deal, isn't it? It's like just finding a way through the work that we do to like support people to feel able to be more responsible for themselves and the way that they interact in the world, I guess.
Yeah, I love that because it basically puts it into storytelling, into the anecdote, right? Which I think our brains are wired. Our brains are wired for myth. Our brains are wired for learning from stories, and that's how we also tap into empathy and understanding. Is we learn more in that state than we do in the let me tell you what to do, or I'm going to tell you what to do. And it's like and Weave the Liminal, there are lots of anecdotes because I'm going to tell you where I screwed up. And you're like, this is what works for me. This is what didn't work for me. And I've had people be like, oh, this is, first they say it's a biography. I'm like, well, technically, if I'm writing it, it'd be an autobiography or a memoir. But I'm like, this is not a memoir. This is me storytelling to tell you what worked and what didn't work for me so that you can make a choice about what's right for you and to consider that. That's a really, I love that idea because people just to be like, oh, it's just telling stories. Like, that's a big thing. Like we began this whole thing with like, the lad remembers everything and everyone. That's the storytelling. It's
Yeah,
so important.
exactly. So before how long have we been going? Ages. Great. Like I always, I always forget to check the time.
It's time.
I mean, yeah, right. Yeah, I could talk all day, honestly. Yeah, so we are teaching at the Gathering of the Shamans together, which I'm delighted about. And I feel like this year we've got some new folk. I've done like 2 years. I think you've done more than that, right? You've done a few years now, the Gathering of the Witches.
One of the first years, so there's last year and this is my second year.
Yeah, oh, me too. Matchy matchy. So I am teaching Shadow and Sovereignty, a Samhain journey with the Morrigan. That's what I'll be doing this year because it's right around the Samhain season or Samhain time, depending, of course, on what date you use for Samhain, because it wouldn't have been 31st of October. And I'm going to be teaching things like Samhain not being New Year originally, for example, and that being like a new age thing. And then we'll connect with the Morrigan and we'll do all these different things. And then you're going to be doing your sigil workshop, which I think both of the things that we teach really align with each other quite well. And as I scroll through, my sister's also teaching. So Wendy Dooner, Plant Spirit Medicine, the Elders Whisper. What's she doing? The Elders Whisper in the Green Realm. And it's my sister. So that's quite nice. So there's like, it's just like, it's great. It's so nice. And I'm so pleased to like be meeting other teachers and like trying to like find out what other people are teaching and why and what's really important and how our values align and what is important. Why are we doing why are we doing what we do? So is this the only one of these that you do, Laura, or do you like to do more of these like group style things?
For virtual events, I've kind of backed off from doing too many virtual events. So I think this is one of the few that I've done or I'm doing this year. It is a lot of time management. I love in-person teaching the most. The virtual, at the same time, virtual events are so important because it brings such a wonderful, like the lineup is so amazing. Not just us, but, like Judica and Matt and Nicholas and Lilith and like all, and like, I'm sorry, everybody is like so many, almost a dozen different people who are experts in their field. And if you can't travel to a festival, an event, a conference, etc., here is this fantastic event that you can turn on your computer and be there live, which I think is best. I would say be there live when you can, but it's also being recorded so you have 6 months to refer back to it. And so for the accessibility, especially for what you're paying for so many different workshops that you're going to be able to, you like can't, if you go to your local witch shop, it's going to, for that many, it's going to cost you a lot more because it's one person at a time and that energy in there. And again, that's not a good versus bad thing. But it is it's a wonderful community experience as well because people are chatting and there's different discussions that are going on and networking. So you meet people from all around the world as well. So it's very, very exciting. But I'd say like my favorite though is when I can be in person and be like, hey, let's go and talk about tacos in the corner or whatever weird things that are happening.
I think they're doing a wee like a chat thing this year because I think they had one the first year that I was there, and then but I think that they're encouraging more of us to be in there. So I think like Amma and Heather Ash is going to join. I think Wendy will join. Maybe I don't know if you are, but there's like a kind of more chat roomy style space as well. So it's not just the classes. Like we can actually go into the rooms and answer questions after and just be around, which I prefer. You know, if I'm going to be online, I want to be connected to the people that I'm connecting with. Like I don't want to just be like the pedestal thing, right? I don't want to just come in and teach and then disappear into the ether. You know, I want to be there and like connect and talk and eat tacos in the corner, as you say, which is really nice. So I am really looking forward to it. I think I'm speaking to Judica later today, actually. So we're doing it. We're doing one of these later, which is really exciting. And I think Matt said he might come on, so we might see him as well. And doing this like wee series for me is important because this is the only one of these I do. This Gathering of the Witches is the only group session that I teach in at the moment for various reasons. One of them is quite time consuming, and also the emails and all the things that you need to do. And I don't want to like bombard the people on the list and in my community with lots of these things. But this one's great. I just want to keep doing it, even though, I mean, technically I'm not a witch, but I think I kind of am, just like quietly in the background. Do you know what I mean? I think that if I had like really understood what it was in the beginning, I probably would have ended up that route. But actually what's happened is that I find my way to witchcraft in another direction. Like I spoke to Geo, that Glasgow witch. Don't know if you know Geo. The other week on the podcast, and that was really interesting because it's almost like there's this real upsurge and uptick in people looking for down to earth, normal, everyday teachers who are real, safe, honest, and actually helpful, and don't talk in word salad, and don't use words that nobody understands, and say things that sound good but don't mean anything. So I think there's a real hunger for down to earth, real, authentic teachers. And when I use the word authentic, I do cringe a little bit, but it's true, right? Like we're looking for people who can actually be helpful. Like you've said, what's the point in being in the online space if we're not actually helping people to get to where they're trying to go? Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to me, authenticity is it's gotten a little warm, but it still means like, you know, when I say what does it mean to be authentic witch or shaman or magical practitioner? What works for you? What is working for you, and being real with that situation is important versus like, yo, you must mimic me. You know, like, no, you're gonna be you. You need to be you in your practice, and not me, because for so many different reasons, right? It's like,
cannot be us. And whenever I teach, I'm like, I'm not interested in trotting out a bunch of clones. Like, what's the point? Like, we don't need more of me. One of me, it's quite enough. Thank you very much. This has been so nice. I've really enjoyed chatting. We could definitely do this again if you're up for coming back. But
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me, Laura. It's been like a lovely chat. Is there anything that you would like to share? Like, where can people find you? What's your Instagram and your website and whatnot? Let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so I have my website, which is lauratempestzakroff.com. That's kind of the hub for all things. On Instagram, I am alchemy.arts, but alchemy is spelled weird because I'm a dork. It's owl like the bird, OWLKEYME.arts. And that's where you'll find not just the witchy stuff I'm doing, but you'll see pictures of my cats and my garden and other things, because I am not a curated individual. I'm like, well, I guess I curate. This is my experience. It's not filtered just for the witchy community. So you're going to see art and cats and plants as well.
Oh, I love it. And I'll also put all these links in the show notes, folks, as well. Wherever you're listening, you'll be able to find Laura's links. You'll find us as well. If you listen to this before the end of October 2025, then you'll catch us at the Gathering of the Witches this year. The links for that will also be in the show notes. Yeah, hit Laura up. Like, might not be able to buy all our books, but pick one. They all sound amazing.
Start
so
somewhere.
Thanks so much, Laura. Yeah, exactly. Start somewhere. It's great. Thanks, Laura. This has been a really real delight, and hopefully we can do it again.
Yes, thank you so much. I'll see you soon.
I'll see you soon. See you in a few weeks. Yay!
Yep.